Hello everyone, welcome to Tokens and Heft. Sorry I missed last week, I'm still getting over a cold, and I know this is a little late, but figure better late than never, right? So for today's Tokens and Heft, today's little tabletop game, we're taking a look at Back to the Future, the card game. Which is pretty cool, from what I can tell. It's based on Chrononauts, which I haven't played yet, but I bought for a friend recently. And let's see. Let's get these guys out. Cool. I like these little ID cards. Because you are going to be playing the game as a descendant of someone from the Back to the Future games. Vern Brown, Clara Wilson, Darlene Needles, Tiffany Tannen, Clay Strickland, Marty McFly III, Marlon Berry, Jules McFly, Electra McFly, I'm guessing is a little more future, and Buffy Tannen. And they're trying to get the time stream to work out in a certain manner. They want these events set up in this manner. And then you try and uninvent time travel so that your timeline is the one that's locked into place permanently, and therefore you win. If you don't do that, your character, I think, technically doesn't exist. So, everyone playing the game will get handed one of these. I believe we keep, you keep them secret because you don't want your friends to find out what you've got. Then, we need to set up, with this deck of cards, we need to set up the time stream. And I'm going to do that real quick, and we'll do a little cut to it. Okay, we're back. I have the vast majority of this set up. You can see we've got a bit of there's one hole here. I'll explain that in a moment. As you'll see, we have two kinds of cards. We have ripple points, and there are linchpins, each with a date on them. And the way this time stream is set up is it goes, we have 1885, progresses from January, or progresses from left to right. We have 1955, here to here. 1985? Oh, weird. I never noticed that before. These are just the 80s in general. Yeah, that's right. These are all 85. These are 55, and then that's 58, 63. These are 63 to 85, and then this one is 85, 94, all the way up to 2015. You don't have to worry too much about that because each card has a little indicator in the upper corner. So, A, B, C, D, 1. Whenever I put the game away, I actually have stack them up so I can just deal out 6 at a time, no problem. And you see there are the linchpins, which are cards you'll be able to alter? No? Yes? I forget exactly how it works right now, because one flips the other and flips the other. We'll see how that all works in a minute. Last part of setup, everyone gets one of their employee cards. Last part of the board setup is this stack here. Emmett Brown invents the flux capacitor. There are 5 of these, but all but one of them have mysterious forces prevent you from changing this event at this time. That is set up because before the game, you will shuffle up these invention of time travel ones here, and they go at B1 every game. And the whole thing is once you've got your time stream locked down, you go there and you flip over the thing, and you didn't get to do it this time, and you keep doing that until there you go. Once you do that, the time stream is locked down. The last thing is you will get a hand of cards, and I forget how many cards we each get. The rules are a nicely laid out kind of a postery deal, showing you how everything works, showing you an example of play and everything. It's well done, and I needed this open for a second. Set up. 3 cards. Cool. We will then shuffle up the deck of normal cards. Put it somewhere nearby where everyone can reach it, and everyone gets 3 cards. Oh, let's give me a random employee ID thingy. Ah, it's one of the tough ones. Some of them only require 3 events, some of them require 4. So I drew Marty McFly III. I need these things to happen for me to exist in this time stream. So I want these cards flipped in these ways. The way we do that, oh, fun. All I have is items to start with. But, I mean, you'll see, overpowered locomotive, which you need to run one of the time machines, the 1885 version. You can't use without the overpowered locomotive. You can't use the regular, straight-up original DeLorean, the Mark I, without a pellet of plutonium. The pellet of plutonium works once. There's also a briefcase, which you can use a bunch of times. And I ended up with the dust jacket from Gray's Sports Almanac, which you can discard to steal the Sports Almanac from someone else. Let's take a look at some of the other cards. There are actions, which are actions. You know, pretty self-explanatory if you've ever played any kind of game. There are various time machines. Here's the time card B2. Requires lightning, otherwise you can't use it. And a time machine, you can flip any linchpin. There are power actions, which are trickier, but cooler. There are double backs. Double backs are another important part of the game, because you can only change a linchpin with a time machine. Say you haven't been drawing one, or you have the original, the Mark I DeLorean, and you don't have anything to power it. Well, maybe somebody else can do this, I think. Oh no, wait. This you can just double back and change one thing. Time Machine will let you change any linchpin. These cards let you change a specific one, and then give you an extra option if you've got something. Hoverboard, the metal pot pan. I wish these were all facing the same. Yeah, there's other time cards. I'm trying to find a hitching a ride card, because that is a thing that happens. Where are they? I'm really confused, guys. I could have sworn there was a whole point of this game where someone else goes back in time, you can hitch a ride with them. Maybe I'm doing this wrong. So let's continue. So you'll be taking your hand of cards. I had a terrible hand of starting cards. You'll be trying to get time machines and double backs and the things you need to run time machines so that you can get things set up the way you need them set up. Now, what I mean by that is, let's say I had the time machine, played everything I needed, and I was able to change B3 here. So B3 is George doesn't confront Biff. So I go back in time and I change it, which means that George McFly punches Biff. He stands up to him now. Linchpin, you see this, it says it flips C1. So you put that back, you got a C1 here, which was originally George McFly gets a job at a place where Biff is his boss. But because he stood up to him in the past, now George McFly gets his short story published. And he starts doing, and that starts his career of that, which is really cool. That's right. Now that I've seen that, the linchpins are the things that you can affect, and flipping them will flip the ripple points. But, so I've got that done, and that's cool. But somebody else might have a card that flips that back. And now me and someone else are trying to fight over what happens. Some of these are a lot crazier. The Sports Almanac here. Sorry for all the sniffling, guys. This cold is really kicking my butt. This guy here. So we flip it, and by it being flipped, this is Biff giving himself, his younger self, the Sports Almanac. Well, that flips this. Flips this. It basically changes the entire 80s. See, 2, 3, 4, 5, not 6. But look at that. Look at all that orange. So that one card, flipping that card, flips all of these. But other things might too? Yeah. Not particularly in this version. But I like this. This is how you manipulate time, and I really like the way they did this. I myself have put some thought into coming up with like a time travel game, and I thought about ways to doing it that involved a lot of retconning, and it ended up being too complicated. This is a nice, this is pretty simple for a game about traveling through time. From what I understand, the regular Chrononauts I think works the same way. It might have a bigger timeline that you're dealing with. And I've heard it's really fun in that because you get to have these conversations like, why did this thing do this? With the Back to the Future card game, if you know the movies, you can understand all the causes and effect really easy. You know, Biff doing that does mean that he wins big at the races, which means that George got murdered, Lorraine marries him, he gets to the casino, and Doc Brown gets committed. That all works in their timeline. And of course, someone flips this back, then all of these go back. Say someone flips this, which means now that's flipped, as well as this. Because that's George and Lorraine not having a kiss, bam. Lorraine and Biff get together, and Lorraine marries Biff here anyway, even though we didn't do all the Sports Almanac stuff. It's neat. I really like the way it works, and I'm kind of happy I got Back to the Future, the card game, before I got Chrononauts, because it was a little tricky to figure out at first, but it really makes perfect sense. And like, it's the kind of game where after I played around with some people, most of which hadn't done much tabletop gaming at all, after we played through one full game, they're like, all right, now that we know what we're doing, let's give this another shot. They were on board. They were ready to go. So, I mean, it's pretty simple. It's like, it gets complicated with the different cards and all of that. You're stealing things, you're zipping around. This is another game that's kind of tricky to show off how much fun it is just one person doing a review. If I were to show you a gameplay session, you'd see how much fun it gets, because you're constantly screwing people over on purpose or by accident. You're doing all this stuff, and then there's the mad dash to hope that once everything's locked down, that you can grab that and get the right version of that card so that you uninvent time travel and everything is fixed in space, or in time rather. So let's see. So yeah, George gets his story published, and on all these cards that you're trying to accomplish the things of, it's very easy to figure out, to discern these. Every linchpin has an icon. So we've got this big question mark balloon here. George and Lorraine's kiss is a kiss. The punch for George punching Biff. You can't quite see it. We've got like Clara falling in Clayton Ravine's got that. Buford shooting the blacksmith. There's that. And then the cards that get flipped by them all have the icon and the name and the coordinates for the card they came or where that card is found. So these are pretty easy to read. You've got B3. You want that to be there, and you want that to be that, so that you get C1. These two you want to be in their normal configurations, unaltered. And then D3 you want. So that does that, and that changes C1. And then D3 does D4. Oh yeah, Marty McFly Jr. says no to the bank robbery or whatever. That means those guys get jailed. And yeah, and Marlene McFly goes on tour. And that is how Marty McFly III remembers his life and how his whole thing went. And once he gets all that set up, the goal is to just find the one of these that gets the thing. Now, I'm flipping over several. He would go here and flip one over. And you're like, all right, that didn't do it. And then you discard this. Don't worry. You don't have to go through that 1 in 5 shot every time. So then this is here. And sure, maybe if he's got the right stuff, he can try again next turn. But in that whole turn, all of his stuff, everything he set up, his time stream could be vastly altered. And then you're running around again trying to get everything set up, and then, I didn't do it. And then an opponent happens to have theirs set up, and, oh no, they did it! And they did everything correctly, and their version of the time stream is now the one that gets locked in place. It's a really fun idea for a game. It's a really neat way to pull off this kind of concept. There is definitely, with the other cards, there's definitely attacking each other a little bit. You know, you can steal items from each other. You can hitch a ride on time machines. There's definitely player interaction going on, especially considering you're all fighting over the same time stream. It's really neat, and I'm happy I bought this, picked this thing up on a whim. I knew nothing about it. I'm like, Back to the Future the card game. Why not? It's a cheap little card game. I'll give it a shot. And it was a lot of fun. And now I can't wait to play Chrononauts. Though, I don't know. See, I haven't played Chrononauts, so I can't give you a real opinion on it. Part of me thinks it might be more fun to play the Back to the Future version, just because, at least for me, because I know Back to the Future well enough for this to all make sense. But I'm sure regular Chrononauts is still just as fun. It's just not as, it doesn't have the theme. So that's not a big deal. So I'm guessing that'll be fun. I think that's all I've got to say about Chrononauts, guys, or Back to the Future the card game. If you're a Back to the Future fan and you like the way this like the way this seems to work out, definitely pick it up. It's fun. It's really easy to figure out, especially the Back to the Future theme actually helps you figure out how this whole thing works. And it's a good little buy. It's a nice little card game. It's fun. You can break it out. It might seem a little tricky because you're doing all this time travel stuff, but it's not too bad. And I think you could play it with family and such. Because the rules really aren't that tricky. And it's easy enough to figure out. Okay. I think I am done with this for today. This is Lincoln for Tokens and Heft and the Back to the Future card game. I'll talk to you guys next time.